right here, I have the ThinkPad Z13 or Z13, depending on where you are in the world. I personally call it the Z13, but just arrived in the mail today. Still has the official Lenovo seal right here. Today we're going to do things a little differently. Normally I do the entire unboxing on the desk, but we're going to actually do everything on the ground today for two reasons. One, that laptop box is a lot larger than the cell phone boxes that I'm usually opening. And two, that box is filthy. So without further ado, let's begin the unboxing starting on the ground, and then once we get the laptop out of the actual packaging, we'll bring it up to the desk. So here we are. And again, I do apologize. This is definitely going to be a little different for me. But we're here on the ground. We got my knife, or really my roommate's knife, because she has a lot of pocket knives. And let's go ahead and crack this seal. Right. Now, one thing that I've seen from other reviewers and people doing their initial unboxings is the fact that Lenovo, like other companies, is priding themselves on using the least amount of plastic possible. So it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see any plastic in here at all. So from the top right here, we can already see it's just a bunch of cardboard, so a bunch of stuff that can be recycled. Over here, I'm going to assume this is the power brick. Yes, the power brick, and I have quite a few of these, so this will probably end up staying in the box. Star, and here is the star of the show. All right. So yes, everything that's left in the box is just more cardboard. All right. How does that look? Yeah, that doesn't look too bad. I think we can stay right here on the ground for now. So this, came off real nice, is some type of paper material. I think it's like recycled bamboo or something. I'll be sure to include that in the edit of this video, what this actual material is. But yes, it is not plastic or anything. And here we have the actual laptop, also wrapped in some type of paper material. Let's go ahead and get this out. Of course, the usual documentation. Man, this is really hard to do. I'm looking at the reference monitor while trying to move the stuff in the appropriate direction. So we have it here, and people frequently just rip this open, and I'm not a huge fan of that. So we're gonna take our time, hopefully, and not rip it. So let's there we go. There's a little bit of adhesive. Let's take that slow. Feel a little more adhesive back here. Let's go ahead and slide this puppy out. All right. Now, how does that look? I think it's pretty good. Of course, my lighting could always be better. I'm sure somebody's going to make some comments on that. Your lighting sucks. Yeah, I know it does. All right. Just getting the hang of it. There we go. All right, we got the Lenovo branding down here, ThinkPad branding up here, and here's the, I think they call it the multimedia bar or something. It's not just, it's more than just a webcam, and they want you to know that, hey, this is different from just the standard webcam. So let's go ahead and turn it around. Open it up. Oh man, that looks really good right there. Okay, that looks really, really good. Now, I'm going to take this over to the desk to see if we have enough space to actually continue recording. Otherwise, I'll be back here on the ground. But so far, so good. I am really enjoying this. And I want you to be able to see things a little bit better. So give me a few moments, and then we are going to hopefully be on the desk. All right, we're over here on the desk, and I know that unboxing was a little unorthodox, but you do what you can with the space that you have. So here we have the Z13, or the ThinkPad Z13. Before we even open it up, let's just take a look at the outside. This is aluminum, and it's a really nice touch, has a really nice touch, so it's nice and smooth. There's a updated webcam in this machine, and it wants you to, or they want you to know that they have this, I think it's called the notification bar or the multimedia bar or something, and I'll get the correct name for that in a little bit. But it's definitely an improvement over ThinkPads of the past, and they're really trying to do something different here with this particular design language. Now, looking at the ports, on this side, we have the headphone jack, combination headphone jack over here, and then we have the power button, and then we have a Type-C USB port, and that, I believe, is a full service port, meaning that you can charge the device with that port, you can send video out of the port, and of course you can use it to transfer data. On this side, the only thing that's notable is that Type-C port, which of course it's also a full service port, so charging, data, and video out. So now let's actually open up the machine, and everybody always has to do their little one finger test to see, can you open this laptop with a single finger? So I'm going to take it, and there we go. So the answer to that question is yes, yes you can. And we are here on the Windows welcome screen. I've already signed in and set up the machine. So there's a fingerprint reader right here. It is not integrated into the power button. The power button's on the side. So a single tap, and it works quite nicely, actually. It's very reliable. It's not a button. It's just a fingerprint reader that you rest right there. There is Windows Hello built into the bar up here. I have not set that up, but from what I've seen online, it should be perfectly fine. I frequently don't use Windows Hello, at least the facial recognition, because on the other ThinkPads that I've had, I always just keep the little privacy shutter closed, and I'm pretty sure if that's closed, all the cameras or all the sensors or whatever required in closing that one doesn't allow you to use Windows Hello. So I just usually leave it disabled and just rely on the fingerprint reader. This particular model came with a terabyte of storage and an AMD Ryzen 5 Pro 6550U. There's also 32 gigabytes of memory installed. Here we can see that the memory is operating at 6400 megahertz. And just for it to be known, the memory on this particular device is soldered to the motherboard. Now, so far, I've used the machine a bit, not a ton, but overall, I can tell you that it's built relatively well. The keyboard is really nice to type on. I will say that I might be having an issue here with the width of the palm rests because they are a little small, but the keyboard itself is extremely nice. Only having those two USB-C ports on the side, can I deal with it? Maybe. My MacBook Air has just two USB ports on it, but at the same time, my main device that I use for productivity stuff is the ThinkPad X1 Carbon that I pointed out earlier. And on that machine, it has what we now call legacy ports. So I use the USB-A port all the time. It also has two USB-C ports. The HDMI port I'll use occasionally. So not having those two ports, really the HDMI and the USB-A ports, is really going to be something that I have to get used to. Now, when it comes to performance, I hate running benchmarks because they tell you what the machine can do when put under, I guess, 100% load, based off of, I think I've used Geekbench a few times. And if I choose to, I'll put up the Geekbench scores just to show that it's not bad, but it's not great. And I ran the Geekbench test when I first got it, and it was unplugged, and I think I got 5,000 something on multi-core, and I said, oh, this is not good. So I plugged it up, and then I want to remember getting 8,000 something on multi-core, and I said, oh, it's not too bad. I mean, a huge difference between being plugged and unplugged. But since that one time I ran the test, I have not been able to achieve 8,000. I've consistently gotten in the 7,000 range. But the reason that I even want to bring up the benchmarks, because Again, I don't like talking about them, but for a machine that I just purchased, made in 2022, 32 gigs of RAM, uh, 6,000 Ryzen series processor, I would hope that I would get, the performance that I think I should get. And with everyday tasks, with the few that I've done so far, I've had no problems, no hiccups. But I had to look at the benchmark scores of the other machines that I already have. And I'll put all those on the screen right now. But yes, the X1 Carbon that I have is several generations old now. So that one definitely was the worst performer. But the MacBook Air, which is now 2 years old, doesn't have any active cooling, outperform this machine. And even though I bought this machine new and I bought the MacBook Air used, to spend less than 50% on the MacBook Air and still get greater performance in terms of using the benchmarks, which again I don't like using, but it's showing what Apple Silicon is capable of. And to know that machine right there, which is just Apple's base model M1 MacBook Air, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigs of storage, to know that is capable of theoretically outperforming this machine is a little disheartening, because then I have to ask myself, well, why do I even have this? So that was the MacBook Air outperformed this new machine. I bought this machine hoping that it could potentially be a either replacement or something that has comparable performance to the 14-inch MacBook Pro that I have. And yeah, no, it's not even close. So, and I know if I were looking for something that were more competitive with that MacBook Pro, I probably should have got a Ryzen 7. And I know they have some U-series processors, but also the HS processors, I believe. So those things definitely would have been more geared towards more performance. But then you got to think about power consumption, and the balance that Apple Silicon apparently has is you get the power, but you also get the efficiency. And trying to compare it to these non-ARM processors, so these x86 processors, just I guess isn't a fair thing. Of the ones that I mentioned so far, the ThinkPad performed worse. It's older, that's expected. The MacBook Air, which I paid less than half of the price of this for, outperformed. The MacBook Pro, which I paid around the same amount for, outperformed. I also have a Dell Precision 3470, and it's not a fair competition. I mean, that's a i7 12th gen Intel processor with 64 gigs of RAM. It's a mobile workstation. So yeah, that also outperformed this machine. And in fact, the performance was on par with that of the 14-inch MacBook Pro. So all in all, initial impressions of this so far are, is it worth keeping just based off of the machines that I already have? What is this going to add to my workload, or how is this going to benefit the workload that I have on a regular basis? So right now, things are up in the air, but so far, it's a decent machine. Before we finish, I do want to take a look on the inside so you can know what to expect. And before we actually go to do that, I might have mentioned it when I was doing the unboxing. I generally do not remember, but since I'm recording all this right now, I might as well talk about it. The one special thing about this, or one of several special things about this, is this trackpad. Now, most trackpads you get, and they're kind of a springboard mechanism. So yeah, let's open that. And yeah, you click, and it physically moves. I don't know if you can tell from the video, but if you let's say you look over here in the corner while it's focused, yeah, you can see that it's ever so slight, but it actually physically moves. And for the most part, that's what all of our trackpads do. Yeah, it seems to be a tried and true method. Unfortunately, some are better than others, but one company in particular, Apple, decided to go with more of a haptic feedback type trackpad, or a force touch, I think is what it's called, where the trackpad itself doesn't actually move, but what happens is when you tap it, you get haptic feedback. So there's a little vibration motor, and even though I am physically pressing down, as you can see stuff popping up on the screen, I am not actually causing the trackpad to move. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I did want to see how it compared to Apple's trackpad, and it's not bad, but it's, you know, it's not apples, and it doesn't sound the same. And I know there's things in the settings you can change to change how forceful the response is, but so far it's an okay machine. Okay, let me go ahead and shut this down, and then we'll take a look on the inside. Let's go ahead and flip this over. And first things first, what type of screws do we have? We have Phillips head screws. And always, I'm using my iFixit toolkit. I don't think I could say enough positive things about them. I mean, all in all, I'm happy with what they do. I'm happy with the quality of this screwdriver set. This is actually the second one that I have purchased. Mainly, the other one that I have is in storage in a different state, so I had to get another one. Before we take the back cover off, I just want to let you know there are 5 captive Phillips head screwdrivers, so they are there, and it was relatively simple to unscrew them. Take my little pry tool, my little pick, work my way around the back cover and get everything taken off. So let's remove the top. And here we have the internals of this not this X1 carbon. Man, I'm so used to talking about the X1 carbon. The Z13. We have a decent sized battery, so 51.5 watt hours. So that's the size or the capacity of the battery. We have 2 fans connected to our processor right there. One thing that I've seen, and I wasn't expecting anything different, is the size of the M.2 NVMe SSD. So we have it right here, and it's covered by probably a little heat spreader right there. But it's one of the short boys, so it is not the standard 2280, I believe would be the standard. I think it's 22 millimeters by 80 millimeters. But this is 22 by something, and I honestly don't even know if this is, I don't know the size of that. But I knew it was going to be one of the smaller ones, so I wasn't expecting anything different, but just wanted to give you eyes on it to know that if you decided that you get this machine and maybe you were considering upgrading the storage on it, that's the size of the drive that you'd have to get. Here you have the Wi-Fi card. It is soldered to the motherboard, so you're not going to be able to do anything with that. I was watching, I believe it was Short Circuit, one of the Linus Media Group channels, and he did point out this little section over here, and I believe he thought that this was for another M.2 NVMe SSD, but I believe that this is actually a WAN port. I don't know, to be honest with you. But I'm pretty sure that that's what that is for. I could be wrong, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that that's for a WAN. Got your 2 downward facing speakers, so I have listened to a little bit of music, and I mean, it's not bad, but it's nothing that's outstanding. Of course, the de facto set of speakers to compare it to are MacBooks, and they're not going to sound anywhere near as good as a MacBook, and they're not supposed to, but they get the job done. So all in all, I think this is a pretty interesting machine. At the moment, I don't have any real complaints about it, but I'll use it for a little bit and I'll decide if I want to keep it or not, because I really am looking for a replacement for my X1 Carbon. It is getting old. It's a 6th generation. Lenovo has released the 10th generation of the X1 Carbon. Mine has 8th generation an 8th generation Intel chip in it, while the newest ones have 12th generation. So definitely some differences between those technologies, and I am looking for something a little bit newer. Preferably, I was hoping to get an AMD machine, hence why I got this. The X1 Carbon does not come with the option for AMD processors, so yeah, you can get this guy. You can get some of the T14s, the T14S, some of the Idea pads, even I think some of the L series ThinkPads. But I'm quite confident there's some type of exclusivity deal between Intel and Lenovo where AMD is not allowed to put a processor in an X1 Carbon. In fact, the X13 can come with an AMD processor, but not the X1 Carbon. So we have the machine closed back up, and so far I'm not really sure what I think about it. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a really well-built machine. I'm happy with the fact that it has a Ryzen processor in it. I'm happy with the 32 gigs of RAM. I'm happy with the logical size of the storage, so the terabyte. I do not like the fact that it's not using a full-size 2280 drive. The screen is nice. The speakers are fine for what they are. I'll get around to testing the webcam, but from what I've seen online, it seems to be a pretty decent webcam. All in all, it seems to be an okay machine, but I can tell you this right now. One thing that I'm already having some concerns about, as I mentioned already, are how thin these palm rests are. Like, I know it's a 13-inch machine, so I know there's going to be some compromise, and I wouldn't even call it compromise because it's supposed to be a small form factor machine, but when you have that small screen combined with those narrow bezels, you end up with a bottom half of the laptop being as small as this is, because you don't have a need for it to be as wide since you don't have the thicker bezels or the bigger screen. So as I put my hands here, I can already tell you that it's not the most comfortable experience for somebody with hands my size, which I don't think they're that large. So I think I'm gonna wrap this one up. And yeah, I'll continue to give you some more updates on my thoughts and opinions of this Lenovo Z13. Or sorry, let me say that Lenovo ThinkPad Z13. It's going to be called the Gen 1 because I'm quite confident they're probably going to make a second generation of this model at some point. But for right now, yeah, I think that's all that I have.